Well, hi everyone and welcome. We are thrilled to have you join us today's live session, Streamline Your EDI Integration Journey with Significant Cost Savings. Whether you're here live or catching this recording later, thank you for investing your time. Today's session is going to be jam-packed with practical real-world insights and how smarter EDI integrations can actually help your freight operations run leaner, faster, and with fewer headaches. So I'd like to go through and introduce our speakers for today. So first, I am Danielle Villegas. I am the Chief Product Officer here at PCS Software. I've spent about 20 years building software products, always focusing on putting customers first. I'm very passionate about creating powerful platforms and very committed to making PCS a more intuitive and efficient and impactful for our customers. Joining me on our webinar today is Brad Perling. He is the CEO of Bitfreighter. Brad is a Nashville native and logistics pro. He was frustrated by the lack of modern EDI tools for logistics providers and founded Bitfreighter to give carriers and brokers a smarter, faster way to integrate with their partners. And it is also my pleasure to welcome Ken Lilly, the Director of Transportation of Very Global. Ken Lilly has over 25 years of logistics experience and is currently leading transportation at Very Global. There he manages 2 private fleets, over 250 million in annual freight spend, and works with over 125 carriers. Ken implemented PCS and Bitfreighter to dramatically streamline his operations and reduce freight costs. And today he has joined us to talk about his learnings with all of you all. So the value of integrations, as all of you know, TMS and integrations with other third-party systems is not just a nice to have, it is a must have. And an EDI integration with your TMS just absolutely makes sense because one, it allows you to see everything in real time. When your EDI and TMS are integrated, you get instant visibility into shipments. That means fewer surprises, faster reactions, and a better experience for your team, and more importantly, for your customers. Also, you can say goodbye to manual work. No more copying, pasting, rekeying data. Automation takes care of that busy work, so your team can focus on work that actually moves the needle for your organization. Additionally, you're just going to work smarter and not harder. Having data flowing in between the two systems helps you speed up decision making, improves your planning, and just keeps your operations running like a well-oiled machine. And additionally, you're going to be able to cut additional cost. When things are connected, you waste less time and resources, and that adds up fast with fewer delays, fewer errors, and more savings to be had across the board for your organization. And finally, build better relationships. Having a standard EDI integration within your TMS just makes standardized communication easier. It makes everything with your partners a little bit easier. It helps build trust when everyone can operate more efficiently. So really, bottom line, and kind of the whole point of this webinar is to help you understand how integrating your EDI with your TMS, you're not just saving time, you're just building a smarter, more connected operation that can help you scale your business. And so with that, I would like to hand it over to Brad so he can kind of kick off things and look at what is EDI, why it matters, and how Bitfreighter is setting themselves apart from other providers.
Thanks, Danielle. That was a great opening. Really got us set up to talk about what EDI is and how we are trying to change the game in the integration space for logistics and transportation companies. Just want to thank you and PCS for setting this up. Thank you to Ken for being here today to talk about his journey with Bitfreighter and PCS and kind of his background within the operation, how he uses EDI. So I kind of want to just start off with the Bitfreighter mission and why we founded the company. And then we'll jump into EDI 101. What is EDI? But first of all, my background, I spent 10 years helping build 2 brokerages in the logistics space, in the trenches, moving loads, dispatching loads, all the different things. And one of the things that was the single most impactful thing that I implemented for the brokerage I was at was EDI. And what that meant was really the operations of building order entry and updating the shippers. And we had this really large shipper that was moving a couple hundred loads a week, and all of that was manually done. So there was a team of load coordinators building those loads, scheduling those loads, updating the TMS, all of those things. And at that point where we were like, well, how do we automate this? How do we connect to the shippers? And we called the TMS I was at, and they said, well, you need EDI. And at that time, I love to tell this joke, but I couldn't even spell EDI. So I was like, all right, well, let me go and figure this out. And so we implemented EDI, and it was a game changer. I will tell you this, if you don't have EDI today and you implement it within your operations, your people will never let you go back to doing it manually ever again. It is something that really enhances the experience and your people's day within your operation. But what I would like to really highlight about our mission is that I felt like there were very few options. They were all very expensive out there. And for the size of company I was at, we were really looking for something that was affordable, that we could scale with, and that was a predictable pricing model. And I couldn't find that. And so the idea of Bitfreighter was, let's introduce unlimited messaging, kind of like Verizon did back in the day with unlimited minutes. And yeah, that was kind of the thesis of Bitfreighter, of why we started the company, is what we were looking for something different. And so to tie this all the way back to PCS, and PCS was one of the first TMS platforms that really believed in our mission. They were one of our first integrations 3.5 years ago as a startup, that you really need true believers in what you're doing and what you're trying to bring to market. And PCS has been an amazing partner of ours. They saw our vision from really day one. And so what that meant for PCS customers and carriers using PCS, we have an amazing story. One of the first customers of PCS, a trucking company, they were paying thousands of dollars a month, and they found out about our predictable pricing model. And it's an amazing story, because they went from paying all of this money for 1 or 2 trading partners down to what I'll share with you is $675 a month for one of our starting pricing plans, which was a huge savings for them, and it's predictable. And they were able to take that money they were spending on EDI and put it to other resources. So that was a really big win for me personally, because our mission in my heart is with the logistics companies. That's really where I started. And to bring this technology out there for people that are looking for something more affordable, that was we were really excited to hear how much it impacted their bottom line. So let's get into EDI 101. And what is EDI? I have Ken here to maybe break it down from an operational perspective, so that I'm not maybe talking the tech talk. Ken can maybe bring it to like how it helped his operation. But I'll first start with just like the very basics of what EDI is. It's a standard transaction. Basically, it standardizes transactions across all of transportation so that we can easily understand how to trade information between systems. And so what that means is there's really 5 different transaction types that we can correlate to your operation, within your operation. So that's 204s or orders or order entry. A 990 is the ability to accept a load or decline a load directly in PCS. So you're not leaving your operation, you're living within your ecosystem. The next thing is a 214 update. If you have tracking ELDs or macro pointer, any sort of tracking that you have, it's flowing into PCS, but then you're manually having to go update your shipper's TMS. And what that allows you to do is still continue to live in your ecosystem, and the systems are working behind the scenes to make sure that everybody's updated. A 210 invoice is an electronic invoice that can come directly out of PCS so that you can deliver your invoices quickly directly into your customers' systems so that you're not having to send out paper invoices or email invoices. And finally, 997 acknowledgement tells us if the EDI transaction was received. So those are really the 5 components within transportation's domestic transportation that we really focus on, and which ends up speeding up and giving a lot of our customers operational efficiencies back into their day so that they can focus on building relationships and what matters. So would love to talk about this with Ken a little bit more about his operation and why EDI was important and a key part of choosing the next TMS, and when he was going through the process of choosing an EDI provider, what was important to you, Ken?
So, you mentioned you hit on a couple of the key components, but one of it is the speed of which you can get to information. So if you look at the slide that's in front of us, the one item that, if you go back to the other one you were at, when you were talking about the 990 accept and reject, and this is one area that I definitely want to focus on to my fellow transportation specialists that are out there. That is one, especially if you have set prices with certain customers that you do business with, and whether you're in their spot market and they're sending out tenders through a waterfall process, right, to where you have a certain amount of time that you have to accept or reject the tender and know the information. That's very difficult to do if you're not part of an EDI process, because you may only have 15 minutes to accept or reject that information. And if you don't have that time and your individuals aren't going back and forth between the two systems, you will not see the loads. That process in and of itself will help generate additional revenue for your organization to see additional loads and accept loads that you may have not seen before. The other key to this too is we talk about the time that's saved by your people at the front lines. And right now they're duplicating information if you're not utilizing an EDI. So again, as you work through the system, it's going to come through in a 204 tender. Your team goes into that and accepts it, and it creates the load for you in your system. Right now, you may be manually creating that information, which again, we know even as good as people may be typing, you're going to have data entry errors, which again is going to create problems. So your team is spending more time focused on really what is data entry, which is tactical, instead of what I like to refer to as stratactical, which means they're doing some of those tactical day-to-day items, but using strategy of how best to use your assets and put rubber on the road to generate the revenue for your organization. So this allows the team to refocus their work on the items that generate revenue, not the busy work behind the scenes that perform these action items. So as I talk a little bit going back in time on my journey too, and again, why Bitfreighter? And as I was having conversation, I've been with PCS almost 3 years. And as I was making the decision where to go, and I had a previous supplier, and looking at what I was spending on EDI, and they mentioned or were giving options, I could have stuck with that EDI provider, but they brought forward an option of Bitfreighter, transparently a company I'd never heard of, and provided me the level of pricing. And I'll be honest with you, it was an 80% reduction month over month of what I was currently paying for, in essence, was the same thing. Now, at that time, being in business for a long time, I did not believe I could get an 80% reduction and receive the same level of service or the same level of action. In addition to that, from an onboarding standpoint for launch, there of course was a price to set everything up behind the scenes, but that was a fixed price. So again, to the point of making it easy to budget, it was easy for me to budget to onboard because I had a fixed price, not how much they would charge me per hour, and I didn't know how many hours it was going to take to onboard them. I knew that up front, and I knew what my monthly cost would be, again, which was an 80% reduction. So again, as a business person, it's hard to step away for a potential 80% reduction. So I made the decision to go with Bitfreighter. The advantage was, and one of the reasons they could provide me this reduction, I'm sorry if I'm stealing a little of your thunder, Brad, but is that they have connections with other companies that are already set up. So in essence, they're just adding me into their network of sharing information back and forth between vendors. So the setup process was pretty seamless. I'll be honest with you, I could probably count on my hands from the moment we launched 3 years ago to today, how many issues we've had. So from a savings standpoint, it's always good, and I know that's the purpose of this webinar, is to talk about savings and the advantage of using the organization. However, the largest part to me, in addition to that savings, is the ease in doing business and how things are handled when I have an issue. And I will tell you when I knew I had the right business partner is there was a situation where we were not getting the correct information through on our EDIs. It was not bringing over all the bits that we wanted from load information. So it was very easy for me to get a hold of the person, as it is to this day, of our contact through Bitfreighter. We contacted that individual. They took it upon themselves. They set up a meeting with that particular company we were doing business with and with the IT team from PCS to sit down in a meeting between the three of them and figure out where that issue was. For the record, that issue actually was on the supplier side. It was not a PCS or a Bitfreighter issue. But the bigger item is I did not have to run and solve that issue. I did not have to ask them to set the meeting. They took that upon themselves to solve that issue, and they've done that the few times I brought to them where that issue may be. They don't just say that's not on my issue. I don't see anything on my side and pass it to you to talk to your business partners. They actually took ownership of it and actually helped solve that problem, which was good because, again, I can speak a little bit of the talk, but I'm not an IT person. I'm an operations person, like I would assume most people on this call are. So, from the standpoint of the value that it brings, you'll be through a lot of these presentations as you're looking to make that journey and deciding either to implement an EDI or whether to go with the TMS system. And I encourage you to look. A lot of the systems are going to do very similar items. And most of the EDI providers are going to tell you very similar messages in what they can provide. But the side that is most important, which has kept me with Bitfreighter, is the consistency. I know how to budget it. Their cost is substantially lower than their competition. I can budget because of that consistency. And most of all, the level of customer service that we received, we've had very little downtime. And to that point, most of any downtime we have had through an EDI service has not been the cause from the Bitfreighter side. So weighing all that together has made Bitfreighter an important customer for Barry.
Thanks, Ken. I could highlight a couple things there. First of all, we like to talk about our services as an EDI concierge service. What I like to do is talk about how, we want to roll out the red carpet and meet our customers where they're at. And especially with EDI, when it's something that's kind of foreign to you, logistics, operations, but you need all the systems to talk, and you need the experts to be able to hand off that package at the door and let them go make it all happen behind the scenes. And you don't want to have to follow up with them to make sure it's happening. You want to make sure that you have a partner that is going to continue to move that integration along, because there's a lot of human elements that happen in an integration where there's a lot of communications. Like you said, there's 3 to 4, sometimes 5 different parties involved in a single integration. And what we've done is we've hired freight EDI experts. So they have an empathy for what you do from an operational perspective, but they also know integrations. So it's a nice synergy between the people that we've hired that understand your business, but also understand EDI. And then the second thing that you kind of talked about is starting with a startup almost, and somebody that you'd never heard of. And I like to call that being a little optimistically skeptical of what you're getting yourself into. I mean, you operate a large fleet. You're basically choosing to try out a new vendor with your very extensive fleet and your large operation. So yeah, it's great to save 80%, but you'd rather pay the extra money to make sure it works. So it's great to hear that you were able to save the money and then also have a great experience with our team and the platform. So I appreciate that. And then finally, this information highway. It's really important to note that Bitfreighter processed 38 million transactions just in Q1 alone this year. And what that means is when we add people to our information highway, we're adding you to existing connections or existing mappings that are just easy for us to add you to rather than starting from a blank canvas. And that's a big part of our value, the value of our network that we're creating and the flywheel effect that we're creating in the freight space, because that's all we do. A lot of EDI companies have a lot of verticals, but we focus only in freight and connecting logistics companies to shippers. So talking about connections and what does that mean? Just the high level, we will meet your shippers where they're at. We offer many different connection protocols, and there's shippers will have different ways that they would like us to connect to them. And rest assured, our platform is very extensible and has many different connection methods. And that's really why PCS uses us, because we're that single point of contact that creates a web of connections to all these different TMS platforms that would like to connect in different ways. And Bitfreighter is the big competitive advantage of Bitfreighter outside of our price and our predictable pricing is that we're the only platform that can automate the life cycle of a load, starting with quoting. So we have an automated quoting tool called Live Quote, and then our managed EDI is called Shipper Connect, which connects you to the operational piece of your business, which is order entry, which is tenders, the status updates. We also have automated tender acceptance, which is our contract lane automation tool, and then invoicing. So we do all 4 elements or components of the load life cycle within the platform. And there are a couple key things I'd like to highlight about the platform. The platform starts at the load level because we're only focused in freight. So we're not a traditional EDI platform that's everything's like transactional and it's hard to see everything tied to a load. So our platform starts at the load level, which means that you can go and look at a load, any of your loads in our platform, and then the transactions are tied to loads. So it makes it really easy for operational people that are working within our platform that might want to go see what's happening or what EDI messages were sent to the platform to go easily access that information and see when were the messages sent from PCS into Bitfreighter and when were they sent to your shipper. So it's really easy to see all of that. And then on top of that, all of our solutions managers that will be setting up the integrations for you live in Bitfreighter. They live in the same platform that we have self-service and give our customers. So what that means is they're actually watching for maybe stuck transactions or stuck loads within the platform, which is in our problems module. So we're seeing things before, most likely before you see them happening, so that we can get the transactions pushed through. So we have a problems module that allows us to essentially fix that stuff before hopefully you know about it. And some of the key highlights of our service, you know, logistics and transportation is a service industry, and we're the core of who we are. We're service people. So what that means to us is we have this concept of a single point of contact, which you get your person to set up each integration. So that person really understands from start to finish what is all of the different things within that integration, and they understand. So you're not talking to a different person each day and trying to explain the same problem to a different person. they wake up the next morning and they already know kind of what needs to happen to get that integration across the finish line. And like I said in the beginning, a core part of why we started this company was to offer unlimited everything. Unlimited messaging is something that I was searching for when I was on the logistics side, and it felt like it should exist, but it didn't. So it's a core part of our business, and it's a big part of what has resonated with a lot of our customers. And our freight network, of course, we're solely focused in freight. So as we continue to onboard new customers, our freight network continues to grow, and all of our customers get to take advantage of those connections. And again, going into the freight network, that means easy and quick setups. We have the real-time alerts as they happen. If the EDI data fails or something changes in the EDI transaction, we see that in real time. And ultimately, we all want to see our analytics and the data that's happening behind the scenes. And we do have some analytics that you can see within the platform. And just a high level of the Live Quote 101. Live Quote, if you haven't heard about it, it's a automated spot board and dynamic pricing rules engine. It's built into our platform. And one of the reasons we did that is they synergy really nicely. If you're an EDI customer and you're using our Live Quote tool, you can actually see the order, the 204, tied to the load details of the quote. So when we send out a quote and you receive a 204 within the platform, you can actually click on the load details and it will take you over to the order as you receive it. And that was a big piece of why we decided to do quoting within Bitfreighter, because you have to quote a load to get a load, and it just made sense for those two products to work nicely together. Here's a quick map of some of our APIs. We have 25 plus APIs to many different platforms, and this is just a quick highlight of that. And finally, predictable monthly pricing. That, I know we've hit on that a lot so far, but the predictable monthly pricing is really important for many businesses. You want to be able to budget. You want to know what it's going to cost you. If you are paying transactionally, it's very hard to budget. It's very hard to know. If ultimately everybody wants to grow, everybody this year, I mean, you can't tell me that you don't want to be maybe 20 to 30% bigger next year. And so what that means to your EDI cost is that if you're pushing more loads with the same shippers, you're just going to pay more for it if it's a transactional charge. And for us, if you're growing with the same shippers, your price stays the same year over year. So you don't have to worry about increased transactional prices as you scale your operation. And then finally, I would like to just kind of show the platform. I'm going to run quickly through that, and then we'll, after that, we can kind of have a fireside chat with Ken, Danielle, kind of talk about a few more things here, but I'm going to run through the platform. Before I do, the essentially 6 things that I'm going to highlight really quickly in the platform is our load level transaction activity, connections have pre-built integrations, trading partners easily add connections, mappings can be done on the fly, and I'll show you a quick mapping. I'm not a mapping expert by any means, but my team loves it when I try to do a mapping. So we'll see if I can make it happen. We'll see. TBD there. Contract lane automation. So we can automate load tender acceptance directly into PCS, and then show you a quick overview of the problems and step transactions that might not be flowing through the platform and how we potentially could fix them. So I'm going to close that and jump over to Bitfreighter. So like I said, first thing here are our loads, and every load is here in Bitfreighter. You can come here and put in your shipment ID at the top, look for your loads. I'm just going to pick this load right here and take a quick peek at the transaction activity on a load. If you're an operations person, you may be wanting to look to see if the EDI transaction was sent. You can see that. And maybe you're an EDI engineer and you're working in Bitfreighter and you want to go and see what that transaction looked like and how we mapped it. And you can see the incoming transaction. We map it to our canonical mapping. And this looks like it might be a stuck transaction, but ultimately what you would see is the success in the logs down here. So this is a good example of how you can come in and look at the logs and look at the transactions and see how they all kind of flow through the platform. The next thing I'd like to show you really quickly is our all of the integrations that are pre-built into Bitfreighter. So we have pre-built integrations, and then we also can do mappings as well on those integrations. So we have a list of pre-built integrations in Bitfreighter, hundreds of integrations that we can select from. So we could select one side and then select PCS on the other side right here. And it's really simple for us to set these integrations up. Our engineers have done the legwork on the front end so that our solutions people can quickly select which integration they want and go and essentially set up a connection and get testing. I like to say we like to do same day connections. We try really hard to make that happen, and then obviously go through the testing process with the trading partner. But it's pretty slick to get these things set up pretty fast. You can see the list of trading partners here in this view and see all of your different shippers. One of the nice things about this is you can send transactions to your shipper's TMS, but maybe the shipper has chosen Project 44 as a visibility platform, and you can also really easily fork all of your 214 status updates right here to Project 44. So it's really simple, where maybe you have to send the status updates or tracking information to 2 different places. Bitfreighter can handle that for you. All right, here we go, the mapping part. So this is our mapping tool. We can do mappings on the fly. So maybe this trading partner has said, you want to get rid of the G61 segment. Kind of getting into code talk here, but stick with me. All right, so we're gonna click this button here that says we want to map this loop, and we're gonna just type in quickly the G61, and then we're gonna add, click the wrong button here. We're gonna remove the segment and just hit save. And then right here, so right here on the examples, we can see that I actually removed all of them. And of course, I clicked the wrong button here. Let me try this one more time. It went great in my head here. So yeah, in real time, you can see that we're removing segments. I set myself up by jinxing myself, trying to make this happen. But essentially, this is our mapping tool. And while I'm live here, let me see if I can do this one more time so I can show it off to everybody.
Brad, it's not a real demo unless there's at least one hiccup. So.
Real demo live on a webinar. Love it. Here we go. I think I just clicked the wrong button. So let me try this one more time. Yeah, got it. All right, G61s are highlighted and they're removed. All right, and then finally, our problems module down here. Here's where stuck transactions come in, and we can see them. You can see that there's a little number right here, and your solutions people are looking at this holistically across Bitfreighter, identifying where their stuck transactions are. So hopefully that gave you just kind of an insight into the platform and how it works. Let's kind of go back over here to the Q&A and kind of open it back up to Ken and Danielle to get their thoughts.
So the one thing that I would like to throw in, and I did not mention before, is the one advantage that I do have, and when we talk about the importance of utilizing EDI, is in my role I do wear two hats. One, I do manage two private fleets internally within the organization, but the other side is I do manage setting up shipments with outside carriers, of which we have thousands of those a day that we manage. And so when we think about the importance, I spoke about it from the standpoint of a carrier, and why it's important and how that helps you. But I can also speak about it as the shipper, why it's important to me, why a carrier has EDI. And so as we move forward, we want immediate information from our carrier partners. We want to know, we want to be able to send them the shipment quickly. We want an immediate response. We want to know where shipments are at. We want to know when they immediately pick it up. We want to know when they immediately arrive it. You want that level of information. And that's where shippers are in today's world, is that they are to the point that they are no longer looking really to do business with carriers that don't have that level of technology, because it is so common in the industry today. So from the standpoint of the organization I work with, we do not do business with carriers that don't have that level of technology. So as you're looking to make the decision and you're looking 3 to 5 years down the road in your business timeline, we will hit a point where, especially your larger shippers, unless you're doing all your business through a freight board, and they're really the ones that are doing the tracking and sending it for you, and you're giving them manual updates, and that may be in the business model that you're in today, but shippers are really looking for that level of technology.
Ken, I'd like to highlight the fact that there's two things that we usually hear from shippers. One is that it is required. And the second thing from brokers is that what a lot of brokers that implement EDI are looking to become a preferred vendor of that shipper. And I think that many shippers start with their preferred vendors that are integrated with them. And in some cases, like you're saying, like in order to even do business with Barry, you have to be integrated. But a lot of times, some shippers maybe make it optional. They would like to require it, but they don't. And so then they start with their preferred list of integrated logistics companies or trucking companies, and then go down that list. So a lot of times our clients, our Bitfreighter clients, are setting up EDI on the front end because they know that really sets them at a different status level above other vendors, because it allows them to kind of set themselves apart from a technology perspective.
Yep, exactly correct. And if you go back on our journey at Barry a couple of years ago, I mean, we did have some carriers that did not have EDI at that point, but eventually have kind of moved to the point of they've either onboarded it or we've had to replace them with other providers, potentially brokers. We do business with brokers, a minimal few of those, but any carrier that broker would choose to put on loads for us has to have EDI for that level of information going back and forth. So just something to keep in mind for everyone that's online for their journey.
Yep. And just to also note, if you have any questions for Brad, myself, or Ken, you can throw them into the chat.
We'll answer them right now live as the webinar is still going on. And of course, if we don't get to it, we obviously can email you after the fact, but we do open up the questions for anybody that is attending the webinar as well.
So while we're waiting to see something, another advantage when you're utilizing EDI, and when you talk about, we mentioned entering the loads into the system. or accepting loads into the system from a tender standpoint, especially if they're tendered through a waterfall process. But the other portion, and this is the part where at times can bring the most value, is when the shipper updates a load status and sends it over to you. That will come into your queue where you just accept that status, and then it automatically will update the load in PCS. That is highly important because typically you may get a load entered into the system, but if there are changes to the shipment time, the shipment date, a consignee, a stop off, any of those items or other items that may be changed within that load, that is often a misstep through dispatch when you're in manual process of updating the information. Again, in this one, it is a quick click of the button and automatically it updates the information, and from a PCS standpoint, sends that updated information to your drivers. So what can be a cumbersome step, often missed, and can create missed loads for you as a shipper, that is something that's solved within a 3-second process.
On the flip side, I can't tell you how many tow news I paid as a broker when our loads were canceled and we didn't have a really good audit process of making sure that the loads that were canceled were actually canceled out of the TMS as well. And then for whatever reason, truck got sent in and we ended up having to pay a tow news. So being able to be directly integrated with your shipper so that you're not having to do that manual audit process between the shipper TMS and your TMS really cuts down on potential future expenses that you could have just through making sure everything is directly integrated and not having those I guess redundancies within your loads.
So we did get a question in the chat. So understanding from Jeff, understanding the cost benefit, but what would implementation and support look like for us if we were to switch from our current EDI provider to Bitfreighter?
That's a great question. So what happens with us is you get a single point of contact. You also get a login to our platform. So you have the ability to see what's happening in real time as we're moving the trading partners through the testing process. We also have a help desk that actually you can track your tickets through this different stages of the testing process. But really having that solutions manager understand your business and the expectations around your trading partners and the transitions is a big part of what has made us really successful. We do so many TMS transitions. It's a big part of what makes us experts in the space. And what happens is we actually have a best practices guide of how to transition to a new TMS because it's a big undertaking, or even transitioning from your existing EDI van to Bitfreighter and what that best practices looks like, because it can be nerve-wracking, but we do this. This is what we do every day, and it's really easy, simple, and there's no your operations people don't really even see a difference. There's really no behind the scenes as we switch from your existing EDI provider to Bitfreighter. They won't know the difference. It's just the new system that's processing the data.
Yeah, and I'll speak a little bit to that too, Brad. From my standpoint, I got updates from your organization as you went through the transformation and switching all the information over to let me know what they were doing and what was going on, but it was very seamless. You spoke to this a little bit earlier that, you know, you do, I believe you mentioned 38 million transactions or 36 million transactions. So a lot of the shippers and business partners that I was doing business with, you're already doing business with. So a lot of it was as simple as adding me to your information highway that was already there. And then just for the ones that you're not currently doing business with, was setting that up in the set model you already have. So from that standpoint, the timeline was actually pretty short. As you move through that, it was all pretty well tested. by the time we got to a launch process, and your team was keeping me updated through that entire process as they were doing it. So when we did actually launch, there's always opportunities when you make launches. When we launched PCS and that learning curve of learning how to utilize a new TMS, but transparently, I didn't have any EDI issues through that transition. So for whoever asked that question, that process is very seamless.
Yeah, and I think
Same
there's
with
something that
PCS.
we didn't, sorry, one other thing to add to that, something that we haven't highlighted is the fact that this is a relationship business, and that those relationships actually bleed over into the technology side. I know, like, we never think about that, like IT people having relationships, but our people have really developed strong relationships with all the EDI folks on the other side of the desk managing the shipper TMS platforms. And so it's really easy for us to get these stood up from a systems perspective, but also there's a human element here. And I feel like we've made it easy for a lot of folks out there to work with Bitfreighter, and they like working with Bitfreighter. And so that is a key part of what has made us successful, is like we view those people as our customers as well.
That's a great point, Brad. I can speak to that from the standpoint of being a customer both of PCS and of Bitfreighter. I know you, I could pick up the phone and call you. And if I go to my team and say who's the individual that they would interface with from a tactical level of Bitfreighter, they know that individual. But it's the same with PCS. I can name multiple individuals that I've worked with PCS, and I get that same level of customer service. And why that is important for that duality of customer service is you guys work together in that same way, which helps keeps things working together.
And so real quick, the question was asked, is this going to be available, the recording later? Absolutely, it will be made available. PCS will send that out. And then just going back to Jeff's question, on the PCS side, it's very easy as well. You also have a dedicated customer account rep, so in our customer success team. And so letting them know that you would like to change vendors, it's easy as turning on a checkbox in ours. And then again, depending on which connections you have, and going through the testing of all of that, like Ken and Brad both said, it's very easy and seamless. So very easy on the PCS side. You just need to let us know that you want to make a change so we can get the right configurations up and running for you inside your system. So, but you also have a dedicated rep for on our side, and you can also reach out to support and they can get you in touch with your customer success rep. But we absolutely will also send out this recording. Any other questions for anybody? We're getting close towards the top of the hour. Ken, Brad, any other parting words for all of our people still on the webinar right now on kind of saving and implementation of EDI with your TMS?
Go ahead, Brad.
Okay, didn't want to speak out of turn here. Yeah, I think that if you're looking at, for me, when I was in your seat, I wanted options. That's what I cared about, and I love that PCS gives options. They have their preferred list of EDI vendors. By no means are we the only one out there. We're really just trying to bring something new and affordable and something that personally I was looking for. So as you're exploring maybe EDI, look at your options, compare what's out there. I'm a true believer in I want to see what my options are, and I want to see the list, and I want to make the decision for myself. But if you have questions, please feel free to reach out to me or my team. We'd be happy to kind of talk through in more detail how the platform works and how our service works, and how we could either set up a new EDI connection for you or transition you from your existing vendors. And we're happy to even be a sounding board for ideas. We're just trying to create something new in the space that's really helping people.
So from my standpoint, I guess my parting points were, the utilization of our TMS, for those of us from the transportation point, is kind of the focal item of all of our data. And it's integral for us to make data-driven decisions on the strategic end to ensure that that data is into the system with speed, accurate, and can be used quickly. To do that, it's imperative that we use tools like EDI to use that information accurately and correctly.
Well,
And
fantastic.
last thing I'll say is, again, thank you to PCS, Danielle, Heather behind the scenes, Hannah behind the scenes, Ken for, devoting your time to this webinar. I really appreciate it. This is a big part of our journey as a new company. We just celebrated 5 years in April. So we really appreciate the time to be able to share a little bit more about what we're doing.
If anyone has any questions of me from a one-on-one level too, by all means, reach out. I believe behind the scenes, I probably have my contact information. So by all means, feel free to contact me individually.
Absolutely. Awesome. Well, yeah, Ken, Brad, thank you so much for joining PCS today and this morning. Thank you for everyone online. And again, if you have any questions, you know where to find all of us. Thank you so much.